Okay, yes, I'm muted, so we are live. Okay, I apologize. Just getting my setup here. Jennifer should be here any second. Just checking to make sure I have the right setup. And I'm sorry, I wasn't expecting to stream. And then Jennifer told me last minute she will be on modern day debate, and it was a topic we didn't really talk about much. But I watched it, and we will have the post show, and Jennifer will be here any minute. Just quick thoughts for anyone watching the debate that was just on modern day debate. Let me make sure the link is in the chat. It was a different style than normal, where modern day debate has switched towards more entertainment, big profile streamers, celebrities. So it's basically kind of became like celebrity debate. So I did not know Jennifer's debate partner, like researched or much about him, but apparently, like, he's a celebrity. He's got a big following, and he specializes in like dating advice. So basically, to some extent, it wasn't really a debate. It was more like probably his normal content and kind of like a preaching type thing. It's not really a type content I generally follow. And obviously, that a woman, Lav, at one point she was quite famous. Like, I've heard her name like in Destiny, kind of modern day debate in general. The whole somewhat like a Destiny orbit of the viewership. He's the biggest in terms of viewers of the streamer, and a lot of people build their way to fame through the Destiny orbit. And that woman Lav at one point was extremely famous, and but she's not really a debater. She's done debate a handful of times, and she's there on modern day debate. It's more because they've pivoted towards celebrities over debaters. They would rather have celebrities debate that get them a large viewership, large audience, more super chat, which is really a good business model. So I'm not critiquing, obviously. I would probably do the same thing. Anybody would do the same thing to pivot towards celebrities as opposed to more high quality debate. Okay, and we have Jennifer here. So, I was just mentioning because Jennifer is one of their stock debaters that's been debating there for years on various topics. And even from the period of time where modern debate was more smaller and more, kind of like geeky, more nerdy, more debate, bro, like before the whole debate me bro influencer culture where there was more like a group of debate geeks that got together. But now the influencer culture and debate culture has merged, and it's kind of pushed out the older school debate geeks in terms of influencers. People would rather see bigger influencers have lower quality debates than to have lesser celebrity people have higher quality debates. And so if we have Jennifer here, I could keep on rambling some thoughts. I was just giving the overview of kind of how modern day debate changed, and my perception that like your debate partner, No Fugazee and Lav are basically celebrities, not really debaters. And so it was kind of just like celebrities talking on the topic in an argumentative way, as opposed to, kind of like a classical formal debate where the structure was clear, the arguments were clear, things were supporting or giving some sort of direction. And I couldn't tell enough from the other guy. He might have actually been a technical debater also, but it still wasn't exactly clear. But if you, I have more, but if you're there, you want to give your thoughts.
Hey, David. Nice to see you. I guess I can just pull. I want to turn my camera off because I'm tired. I've already got my hair back in me, but I'll just say hi. There you go. Hey, Tinkle, Tink, and Judas. Hope you're well and still.
You see my celebrity status has
very high
dwindled
priority
from the the viewership, and that's why I'm saying, like, that's why modern day debate like would pivot more to celebrity than debate. But maintaining an audience for high quality debate may be impossible.
Probably because it's incredibly intellectually demanding, and there are some issues where there's just there's a very hard to make a case. Like, I would not want to take the other side of the debate that I took today. I just don't know how I could defend that, the other side.
Well, I mean, I could have probably defended either side just because of technical debate skill, but it wasn't even clear what the topic was or what sides people were arguing. And from, we spoke earlier before you actually debated, and like I was expecting something completely different, and they didn't even list who the other people were. So at least like if a few days ago they listed who the other participants were, I could have looked at their content and had a view, like no Fugazee and like Lav or something. If I knew like that who was you were going to be debating with, I would have at least expected it was going to be, God forbid, mostly about adult content and divorce. And to me, like those topics are almost completely uninteresting topics. I definitely would not tune in for. I mean, like, and it didn't even make sense to me. Besides that, that's probably what those streamers talk about often. That was like dominated the debate, and even like what that had to do with any point that, like, what like did they have a side or a point that they were trying to like bring you over towards? I wasn't even so clear on that point. So it was kind of.
Well, I think that it's really hard to refute the central thesis. So even to engage with the central thesis is basically setting it up that you're not going to look good. And, like you said, there's so little structure. It's all mostly it's rhetoric. Like, I don't
Just
know
like
if
a
you can
Babscast.
tell that it's rhetoric because it doesn't sound like it's rhetoric because it sounds like scientific facts. But the fact that they're not given in any structured order makes it just random rhetoric. Like, oh, how important is it about this particular thing? Which is like, I was actually literally confused at multiple points where it's like, how the fuck does this even connect to the point of the debate?
It didn't, but I'm saying modern day debate has become basically celebrity debate, and then you get like two alpha personalities in the form of your partner No Fugazi and Lav, who are basically celebrities, and so they just dominate almost all the time, talking about things that really are not proper debate. But it's like they're the celebrities. They're who people are there to see, or at least they hope they're going to be there to see. And to me, it's a negative sign of the direction modern day debate. It was poor content, and no offense to you, although like my main criticism to you is a pet peeve. Like, no one likes people who talk slowly. Like, do not talk slowly. It's so irritating when people talk slowly. And I don't know if you were purposely doing that, or you hadn't streamed in a while, or like you're nervous, or you thought, but it was like, oh man, it's just so irritating when people talk slow. I know a lot of people do it, and if you have to do it, but it's like, oh, it's like do not. And even like Ryan, like I almost wanted to shut that off, and it was like, I mean, he's not a bad guy, but he's saying I don't care about his personal life. I don't care, like I want to see a debate. Like, no offense, like why are you telling me personal information about yourself? You're not a celebrity. You're not important like that. Like, there's no use of that information about yourself to me. Like, if Lav or No Fugazi, like they're celebrities, like more people will tune in for their celebrity gossip than are going to tune in for modern day debate. And like Ryan's got to put himself in perspective. Like, he's not a celebrity. No one cares about his shit. To me, it was just irritating. And like, so not only that, like I didn't really learn anything. And there's all this like stuff was just like irritating to me. I mean, I'm not saying because I don't consume that kind of content. To me, it's kind of like basically just like entertainment or non-helpful or at best preaching. Like, I want straight information. And the topic to me was interesting. Actually, well, I got a Cooley someone calling him out. I'm not calling him out. I mean, because I'm
He's
saying it's a
talking,
different.
or I should say they're talking about me. Here's the thing about that. Like, okay, I really eventually want these debates to be like awesome to, to a high level. So the thing about calling out your own debate partner is there's kind of a taboo against that. You're not really supposed to see. The thing is that it's supposed to be the moderator actually who says that. And then technically, if I was going to interject, I would be telling the moderator to moderate coolly, which I did at some point generally, I didn't specifically ask the moderator to do that, but I generally said we should get back on track
Well, I mean, no, I mean, you're right. I mean, because Ryan's a
several times.
weak mod, and I mean, he's probably a celebrity. Like he's even got someone super chatting me. Like he's probably famous, and I don't mean like calling him out like he's a bad guy or something. I'm just saying, like, I'm a technical debater. Like he's not like, I mean, like he's famous. He's a celebrity. He does his stuff. He's not a technical debater, and he basically just kind of like probably did his podcast on modern day debate. A lot of people do that. That's their style. That's what they switch to. Like they will hand over their platform to you if you're a celebrity, and they don't care. It's called modern day debate, but it's basically like if you're famous, you could come on here and ramble like it was like Fresh and Fit or Pearl, and that's their model. And it's like we're technical debaters. Like you're from the old school that was like you're not famous. I mean, like how are you going to call them out? Like, I mean, it's just the fact. Like, okay, like you're technically correct, but like no one's here to
Wait
see
a minute,
you.
hang on a minute. You're saying someone could call him out on the basis of fame? Like, what about my point about just decorum?
Yeah, but I think this is the current influencer culture where there's a pecking order, and the pecking order is based on like your viewership or you're bringing in money.
So
And
you think that there's preferential treatment on the basis of how many viewers someone has?
well, like, duh, yeah. I mean, I'm saying modern day debate like basically sold out, and they're for a for-profit model, and they don't care about high quality debate. They want famous people that are going to get the super chats and get the viewers up, and you're not one of them. Like you're still on because you're grandfathered in. You're still part of like like in their roster in the sense, but like it didn't matter like that. Like in Ryan's a weak mod, even James, to like to call out, and you really couldn't have controlled it anyways because like you knew that people didn't really want to hear one of your boring lectures. They wanted to hear something more exciting. They like, I mean, and like fact is like God forbid, probably like half of the people watching like have seen all like God forbid like the pictures of that other woman. And like she was famous, like she was one of the most famous people in the world for a brief period of time.
Oh, who are you talking about?
That woman, Love.
Okay,
I don't know if you never heard of her before.
I heard of her from the Destiny show because Destiny is always coming up in my YouTube suggestions, and he's actually kind of funny. So sometimes I watch it, and she was connected to him somehow.
She was for a brief period of time, God forbid, not because I ever was on that site, but she was for a brief period of time one of the highest earners, most famous people on OnlyFans.
Okay, like see, I didn't know
She
that.
was not famous for being on Destiny or Debate Bro. She was on Destiny because she was one of the highest earners, most famous people on OnlyFans.
Well, I guess for me, who only cares about debates, that's how I know who she was.
Okay, but I was saying in a relative level of fame, there are tens of millions of people who have probably seen this woman's pictures. They know who she is. They don't know who you are.
Okay.
In terms like modern day debate, like I mean, he told me straight up, he's like, you're not big enough to be on my channel. Like you won't get enough views. And like, okay, maybe I sound bitter, like I say, because I am, but by saying like, yeah, I wanted to have modern day debate, and like you're in the roster. But that's fine. I'm just explaining why the debate, from my perspective, went the way it did, and that's because they switched to a for-profit model, and it's based on getting super chats and getting big guests that bring in a lot of viewers. And so, if you're not one of them, they will give all the floor time and benefits to the person who's bringing in the money and viewership. And like that's just good business. It's not good debate, but it's good business. And if you switch to a for-profit business model, you're going to do what's good business, not good debate. So I'm not even blaming anybody or saying it's just natural. I might do the same thing if I were them. But I think that's why the debate went the way it did.
Yeah, that makes sense. He said he has 400,000 subscribers, so that's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, to him, he's bigger than modern day debate. He's bigger than all of you put together. The people that are there probably just to like hear his normal dating advice. And maybe they were. I mean, factually, like maybe most of the people watching there were there actually to hear his, whatever he does, like dating relationship advice. And to some extent, it proves the debate. It proves the issue. Because you say he's supposed to be the conservative, and like, what does it even mean? People are so far removed to even understand like what accountability means and what it means that women are not accountable. What does it mean? Like you were saying, I mean, some people, like, I saw that guy's affiliated with Myron Gaines from Fresh and Fit. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him.
Yeah, those are the guys who debate the girls who wear a lot of makeup, right?
Well, that's one of the things they do. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the most popular thing on the internet right now. Like a dating channel, like, kind of like hostile inner sex debate between men and women is, if not the most popular, one of the most popular things on the internet. So, if he's involved in that, and I'm saying Myron Gaines is one of the biggest people who do that. So I'm just guessing maybe he has some sort of worldview like that. But I mentioned the difference. Myron Gaines is actually a Muslim from Sudan who not only grew up, in a Muslim family, but is familiar with traditional life in Sudan, where presumably women are literally still property. Like where you're not like talking hypothetically, where the legal system and like if you're an Orthodox Jew, like I know this stuff because it's Jewish law, and even in America, where two like modern Jews might get married, they still sign a document that corresponds with biblical law, where you acquire your wife you from her father. So you just say, oh, that's just the ritual, but like in the actual marriage contract, if you're religious, you still technically, you could even argue purchase, but you unquestionably acquire your wife from her father. And this question of accountability, like you were saying, like women aren't accountable because their father's accountable and because their husband's accountable. So if I get in a dispute with you, that means that I would sue your husband. That you're not accountable in that sense, that if for some reason you cause harm, it's your husband who I'm going to have to deal with, who's going to have to suffer the consequences if there are any. And like I mean, I appreciate your argument if that was what you were saying, well,
I was saying that history is not that long ago. Like the women were considered property in coverture, and that wasn't that long ago. I wasn't saying that the coverture norms are still extant. It's just saying, like, yeah.
Well, they are. I'm saying they probably. I don't know what percent, but they probably are.
Maybe for Orthodox
20
Jews,
to 30.
they are, but not for random people getting married. It's not written on their marriage license.
Well, it probably is 20-30% of the world where that still women are still some form of property or have to have the stewardship of a male.
Okay.
And like if you grew up in that sort of culture, you just know like you need permission from a male to do most of your even regular activities. But it might even be normal, not even like oppressive or something, just societally, and it'd be a legal status also in terms of property ownership or money or various things. But I'm saying that's just like global cultural knowledge that most people don't have. And even in India, like it's probably like it's I would say it's even the norm in most of Hinduism and in the Vedas and even probably large parts of India.
Well, property didn't really work the same way. Like basically everyone's
women
a
is
property of
property.
the king.
But I'm saying that women were still property of fathers in traditional Vedic society. Daughters are property. And even like the most important thing that I think that people miss,
Well,
and like
not really, because it's like kind of only the king has property. Kind of.
I mean, if you're just talking the idealized Vedic state where you had a Vedic king, I'm just talking about practical lives. There's many forms even till today, or different understandings of the Vedas that are traditional way where the women and girls are property of the father, the tribal elders, and like in terms of marriages, still you actually the daughters are still actually bought. They're sold. You actually purchase the daughter from her father.
Well, dowry
You could
is
be
usually
against that, but
the
I'm saying that's
girl
still
has
a
money
norm.
that comes with her because she's considered a liability. So the dowry comes with the girl. The husband gets the money for marrying the girl. It's backwards from your system.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. There's two different aspects. I'm sorry, but yeah, but I'm saying, yeah, that's the main point. But I mean, the point is because at that point, the father is no longer accountable for his daughter. The husband is now accountable in the dowries because the woman is not accountable. She's not required to support herself. She is
Right.
no. If the woman,
Property is not accountable.
yeah, and to say if she were to get in trouble, it would be her husband who faced the legal repercussions, not her. And to
Right.
the extent if it was past a certain, biblically, it's basically like women and children are the same legal status, and that doesn't necessarily, I mean, it have to be oppressive, but it just a legal status to do certain things, to testify in court or to run businesses, to own property, and most importantly, to run society, to have the important roles in governing and running society. And so if you're talking about going back to traditional society, I think that's the mistake that your debate partner makes. It would not be by making women responsible. I mean, it's kind of what you're saying. Like basically, the only person you could make responsible for women is their father. And if you can't find a way to punish girls' fathers for their daughters' bad behavior, um, you really have to put it upon the state. You can't really punish the women themselves for their bad behavior in many respects in that way. And that's why the burden comes onto the state. And that, your kind of argument, like my first super chat that I put under my name, actually, not Duvid, but that like natural law works its way out anyways. Like people suffer the consequences of their actions. So like, what do you want done more than the person suffering the consequence of their own bad choices? Like you need, especially in the terms of like,
Well, the idea is that civilization bears the consequences of horrible decisions.
yes, I'm not sure
So,
what
like, is
prescriptive.
it good if everyone's divorced? Like, I feel like to me, it's like, I don't care that much because I understand proprietorship. I actually understand it that, like, ownership is a spiritual thing. And I said the king before, but technically, like, the king is sort of enthralled to yogic authority. So it's like that all stems from that in my worldview, and it's simple. The other approach is, that's where it gets confusing.
Without formal, like a metaphysical laying out a philosophical background, what is
You
responsible.
just have to state on what level the state is performing redistribution of resources. And then you can make reasonable speculations as to sociological consequences from that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would largely agree with many of Myron Gaines, so to say, like red pills, in the sense of like a natural order that works its way out with relations and the current defunct status that the West is in. And but I actually agree with your take that it's largely caused by the glut of wealth that we're suffering. The only reason, because like generally, um, weak men die off, and we I mean, there's always going to be a larger amount of men that fail to reproduce than women, and some sort of competitive. It's just the current Western society, largely based on empire and excess wealth that's disappearing, has created a unnatural reproductive situation or societal in terms like dating or very complicated things that you could analyze all the different complications that have caused the current situation we're in. But it's became defective, and it's obviously problematic. So like if this you're Fugazee, right, he's a dating coach that helps people successfully navigate the current situation to the best of their ability to be successful, and he's good at it. Yeah, I could see that. But in terms of like what are the legalistic, metaphysical, philosophical precursors to understanding the issue? How would you break it down, properly define it? Like, I'm just, I want to see a technical debate like that, and I didn't get that at all. And like you were, I mean, I appreciate you were just like, you want to see that, come to Duvid, and like I'm here, like I would still do that and examine these issues. A lot of these issues, say the biggest red pill is the biblical red pill that most people don't appreciate, and that's what you say. God forbid, all non-contractual sex is rape.
Well, if you're just going to view everyone as essentially chattel, you can argue that
no, I'm saying that sex has
non-marital
to be.
sex is degrading the quality of the product.
No, I'm saying that there is no such thing as consensual sex. That proper consensual sex has to be approved by parents and elders. Like there's no such thing as an adult male and adult woman consenting to sinful sex. And even like to differentiate like that to, God forbid, even the R word, to say they're both forbidden, and that basically from the perspective as even though two humans could obviously have sex with each other, it's forbidden, it has to be approved, it has to be sanctioned by the priests. Factually, yes, by the priests. The priests have to approve your sexual relations, and if not, it's forbidden under any circumstance. And just to turn, like, if you live in a traditional society where like there's eyes on you, you just never get away with it, or you'd get lashed, you'd get publicly beaten, your family would be disgraced, and you realize like you're just going to marry who your family picks. You're going to have very little choice in the matter, and marriage is not about like who you choose. Marriage is something to do like with your family and your family. And so in the West, you don't have these options. Like if unless you're like an Orthodox Jew or like part of some Hindu cult or some maybe Christian cult, your parents are not going to be able to arrange your marriage. Your tribal elders are not going to get together and recognize your traits and the girl's traits and find out the best match. You're going to largely have to find your mate on your own, and it's these unnatural current conditions that are very tough to navigate. Hence the rise of a dating coach. But I'm just saying the return that people don't realize, like this turn backwards to patriarchy, it's unclear. Even I mean, like I would might like Andrew Wilson. I would probably in like the Andrew Wilson school. Like yes, I mean we just have to take away the choice of mating partners away from women. Women cannot be trusted to choose their own mate. And it's like in a true patriarchy, you have to have a really strong patriarchy structured to know that like women are not going to get away with choosing their own mating partner.
It's sort of confusing to think about just how much has changed. I guess it's since the advent of the concept of romantic love and the nuclear family becoming really prevalent. But it's mostly romantic love. Like even today, a lot of movies are about romantic love in some way.
Yeah, that's what I kept on saying. Like you're taught, like you're not taught. Like what do you mean you're taught? Like everybody knows the Bible. Everyone knows what the Bible says. Maybe like in school you're taught evolutionary biology, and then you're just like, okay, the media, advertising, maybe, but like there really is no they that's teaching. Like you have the religious institution that's still the classical Bible, that that any form of sex out of marriage is completely forbidden. Like, I mean, you might have a different reading, but like that, everybody has to know like the church on the corner and the Bible's message. And then in school, like they don't teach like propaganda or like Hollywood movies. They teach you like evolutionary biology. And if you're being educated by the media, that's on you. Like society didn't do that to you. And really, saying like your parents in public school education, you should be taught basically like evolutionary biology, and then beyond that, that's up to your parents. And there was also an important point that I've mentioned many times. Like people are so distant from this, is they don't know what gender segregation means, and to say like women to be held accountable, like what do they teach women in all girls school? And like, I think you said you had went a few years to all girls school, but like,
No,
no, you
that
didn't.
wasn't me.
It was just Catholic school, but it wasn't all girls.
Yeah, I was Catholic up until grade 5.
But it wasn't all girls.
Not all girls, no. My mom went to a school that was not even all girls, but it was segregated. So, like, they were
I'm
in
saying
different
all
parts.
girls schools, they teach you how to be a wife and mother. If you go to public non-gender segregated schools, at no point are they going to teach you how to be a wife or a mother. They're just going to teach you the general things that are useful in society for men and women. And it's upon your parents or yourself to learn on your own if you should choose what it means to be a wife or mother, as opposed like if you went to an all-girls school, especially like a religious school, where you would be trained, the majority of your training would be geared towards being a successful wife and mother.
Yeah, it's not really much of I mean, most people don't go to that. It's always bothered me that they don't teach economics in high school, like just personal economics, you know? People should learn to not get into horrible debt spirals.
No, I mean that's the point of accountability. You can only expect yourself to teach your own child, like the state, like just the fact, do you think the state should be accountable to teach your kid something?
I think that a
Like if
theocratic
you are not qualified to
yogi
teach
should
that to
be
your kid, you should
responsible for
expect your kid
interpreting
not to
things.
know it. I mean, like where it comes like, oh, the state, they're gonna come in and save and teach my kid these things. Like,
I
no,
didn't say the state. I said I think theocratic authority, aka yoga, should. I said that. I think that's where property is all, authority is all rooted in theological authority. So
okay, so biblically, you have widows, orphans, and strangers that require the care. Everyone else basically should suffer the law of the jungle and mean say like if you're a woman and you have no father, then you're an orphan. You're treated like an orphan until you're married, and then your husband's property. But should your husband pass away and not have provided enough support for you, then you become a widower, and then also you will be like so in Vedic culture it's the same thing. Meaning like a Vaishnava has an obligation to care for orphans and widows. You don't have an
that's
obligation
right.
to care for like random women, saying like, okay, if you're a girl and your father didn't take proper care for you, then the Vaishnava has an obligation to you as an orphan. But like other than that, like um, you're your father's obligation. Like the society should have no interference unless your father should fail his obligation. And then if your father doesn't fail his obligation, it's largely your father's discretion how he wants to raise you. And so now where really no one's accountable, you really have no upstanding men to lead women. It leaves women in a very precarious situation because like obviously like you don't want to follow you could I mean women have basically the choice of trying to you fail to become leaders in a certain sense because it's not really applicable or viable for them to successfully do it, or to follow um, failed men. And that's the status where we're basically in today. You could fall behind, but like there's not really qualified men or competent men to follow, and so women are forced to go out on their own. And like you, like okay, so you had to fight in the academic and the business world like a man. You might have had some benefits, but like basically you had to fight in the man's world to succeed academically and in business.
Well, not really because of affirmative action and I don't know. I always kind of feel like I got an easier time in a way, preferential treatment.
Well, I mean, you might have in the sense that,
Well, I mean, I've also seen men fucking simping in my, career.
but I mean, are you claiming that you didn't pass the test, you didn't get the grades that you deserved, or you didn't perform the task or function at your job properly, or just that they weren't as rough on you, or they, I mean, you were saying they didn't even require as much.
Well, they more or less
They
have
let you get
quota.
away. They let you get away with performing a lesser job and didn't complain.
Well, I didn't do a lesser job. Like, I did a good job, but I still think I was given preferential treatment, if that makes sense. So,
No,
but
because you have to distinguish. You have to classify. There's preferential treatment in terms of job function and performance, and there's preferential treatment outside of job performance and function within your job. So if you're saying you got preferential treatment in both aspects or just one
I'm
of those
saying I
aspects,
got preferential treatment and I attribute it to being a girl. I got, like,
you're not defining which type of preferential. If your
well,
preferential
because
treatment,
it was a pattern that I noticed, and I noticed that a lot of women would take advantage of that propensity more than me. But I feel morally compelled
you
not
just
to take
you
advantage
don't
of
appear to
people.
be clearly answer. I'm saying there would be an example of task performance would be you performed like a lesser, like you like if everyone else had to do 12 reports a week, you only had to do 11, or if everyone else certain standard, you had a lesser standard, and it was clear because you're a woman they didn't hold you to the higher standard, or there's something completely unrelated to task function, like the boss used to yell at everybody, but because you're a woman he didn't yell at you. um, but it didn't have anything to do with like allowing you to perform your task at a lower level. It just had to do like he was a little bit nicer or courteous to you, or treated you differently than the other men, but not related to task performance.
Less related to task performance, but I'm not just speaking about my own experience. Like, I'm going based on working in a professional environment with women over many years, and we're putting that together into one aggregate impression that, yeah, a lot of women will attempt to take advantage of the fact that men will give them special treatment. But that doesn't translate to accountability. That translates to possibly more.
It doesn't translate to accountability because they're saying,
How exactly?
because if the man who is giving you special treatment is accountable, that means he has to compensate for the special treatment. That means, like, for example, if people are supposed to do 15 reports a week and he's allowing you because you're a woman to do 12, that means that someone else has to compensate and make up those 3 reports that you're not doing. Or the whole program is now falling behind and doing less reports than average, or it could eventually bring the whole thing down to say, like, for example,
I'm
if you
not
let
saying I'm incompetent, but I'm not a statistically significant
if
woman.
like
I'm
if
not. My experience is not statistically significant because it differs from most women's experience.
I mean, there's like the simping and the pimping, in the sense like the simping would be if like the 15 reports a week and you're only doing 12, and that's if I'm personally doing the other 3, so I'm doing 18 and you're doing 12, and I'm just a simp because like we're both getting credit for 15, but like I just want like a woman in the office, so I don't mind doing your work. The
I wouldn't say that happened, but who knows? Maybe I'm speaking beneath a veil of privilege.
I mean, even like the pimping, I mean, saying like if it's just like I tend to like yell or be disrespectful or insult people, but I don't really just do that to women. So like I got, women, I just, like I just don't yell at her. I don't disrespect her in the same way that I would my male colleagues.
Right.
But I still hold them to the same task performance requirements. I just don't treat them the same. I treat them differently, and I don't. But the task performance requirements are the same,
Well, good
and
on
that could even be.
you.
So I mean, affirmative action
The
usually.
thing is, like, I treat women different than men too.
Oh, so, I mean, you're just throwing out words, but I'm saying affirmative action usually refers to task performance.
I am
Uh,
talking about them having fucking quotas of how many women to hire. If you have to have a 50%, whatever, I don't know what it is, but they have a thing where you have to have a certain amount
they have
of
they have 2
minority.
things.
and women are considered a minority or something, or however it works in Canada. But I know for a fact that it works on the basis of quotas, and a lot of technical, obviously, environments can't possibly hope to meet those quotas.
Well, I
So
mean,
there's an incentive
I
on
know
them
because like
to bring me in because they say, "Oh, look, now we're meeting our quota," and I get to be like their housewoman or whatever, who come in and be like, "Oh yeah, I'm on level. I know how to do physics." Ha 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 ha, ha.
no, I know I'm management. I like you follow rules and saying if they require you to hire minorities or women, and like you do it, and if they require you to allow them to perform at a lesser standard, you do it because you have to. And saying like
That's
that's
right.
common. Like in America, that's been the way for decades, and saying like I worked with government jobs and saying like that's just the commonplace that like you have politics or people might complain or people might not say it is the way it is due to political perspectives, but like in terms of navigating the US system probably can't. It's been that way for decades. It's just that's the way it's been designed, that's the way it's operated. There's politics, like Republicans will change it a little bit, to the right, and Democrats a little bit to the left, but where it is right now, affirmative action has been mainstream policy for decades, and almost everybody in like a university or major employment setting is used to it and knows how to function within it. Although you could reject that that's kind of what's happening, and so there's the psychology of saying like, well, am I being treated different? And then am I being held to different standards? And sometimes it's obvious, like that you're being held to different standards. Sometimes it's not as clear. That's why I'm saying like a lot of times it's like literally things like closing cases, and like women literally have a lesser requirement on how many cases they have to close.
Yeah. Well, the cases were so different from each other that there wasn't really any way to compare them. So I would say I think I did more because but I didn't really contribute it directly to my job because of all my contributions to AI and stuff. But
You know what I'm saying? If you're
looking
management,
at my
there's
job,
usually a
I was
metric.
very absent-minded and definitely dumb in a lot of ways. But I tried my hardest, and I think I earned some people's respect because I am smarter than a lot of guys. It's just that unfortunately I've noticed that there's some guys like that just the accountability thing. Like you can only do so much. Like they just if a woman said it, they are not gonna listen, you know? And it's like, okay, uh it's not enough that I actually worry about it too much, but it's a lot. It's a high amount.
Yep. I mean, but what, for example, would it be like if your paycheck went straight to your father or your husband? That if society was regulated in such a way that you did the work, but like you weren't trusted with the money, and that you could do that, but like your husband or your father would have to control the money because you can't be trusted to control your own money. We were just saying legally structuring. They were just like
It's just such a
hypothetically.
massive hypothetical that I'm struggling to.
Well, I mean, it's not a hypothetical because there's probably tens of countries that you could move to where that would be the system of law.
It's hypothetical for me. For this entire lifetime, I've been told that I can make my own money and make my own choices with that money. And so is every other girl in every other Western country. So, yeah, it's a little bit
Yeah, but I'm saying that you're not dumb. You're
uncontested.
educated, and you know that if you travel to another country, you'd be subject to their law. Like if unless you're a dumb Westerner
Well,
and you
maybe
think
if
that
I
you're
got
going to go to another
abducted,
country and that they're going to make an exception and not subject you to their law in their country.
maybe if I got abducted while I was there.
Well, not abducted. I'm saying if you voluntarily went to their country, presumably you would know that you would be accepting to be subject to their law, and you wouldn't expect them to like adapt their law or change their law for you. In the sense that you're an intelligent woman, you could research the law, and I think Kenya's an example, but like certainly like Saudi Arabia, Jordan, many Arab countries that your property, your ownership rights of a woman are not the same. And if you married somebody in those country, he would have all the ownership. You wouldn't have any ownership rights, and that would be the law of that country. And if you were in that country and tried to do different, you would be in violation of that law. And at best, you could be like, "Oh, I'm a Canadian citizen," and hope that the Canadian government might help get you out of there. But even the Canadian government would be like, "You're in that country. As long as you're there, you should follow their law."
Okay, I don't know what this has to do with anything.
It has to do with the fact that there are places on the. I mean, you could say it's dumb or you disagree, but I'm just saying there are legal systems that currently in the modern world today that are structured like this, where women are still don't have the legal rights even to have own property or to some extent even have their own bank accounts.
So you're saying a lot of women are working and that money's going into their husband's bank account?
Well, okay, so I'm saying if Myron Gaines from Sudan says the problem is feminism versus I don't know, someone like James said the problem is feminism, is like, well, what do you mean? And it's saying like, okay, the problem is feminism. We need to go to like how we're doing it in the Sudan. As opposed to like, feminists have went a little bit too far in modern Western culture, but I'm not talking about making them property of their fathers again. And I'm not sure like Andrew Wilson might be that kind of far on the right wing where he actually is saying like, yes, I am talking about making women property again. Because the whole like start with the right to vote. It's kind of like, God forbid at this point where we're relitigating civil rights legislation here in America. It's like, okay, like civil rights, 1965, America changed, but like, there's Trump and things changed. And now people are, saying like, maybe we should go back and, segregation or nationalism again. Well, it's very contentious and who knows what's going to be. But if you're going to get like on feminism like that, we got to get rid of feminism. We need to go back to like the mid 1800s where women are property again. And it's not just the right to vote. It's the right basically to make intelligent decisions for yourself. It's saying biblically, Jewish law, Islamic law, some forms of Vedic law, women are not, they're like children. They're not considered competent to make decisions for themselves. And they need men to make decisions for them. And, that's the accountability question, because it's just like straight up, you're saying traditional Vedic culture, biblical culture, is at clear odds with feminism in that sense. We're just saying like accountability. It's saying it's not that women are functionally not accountable, like children are functionally not accountable. I'm not necessarily saying that that's what I'm arguing, but I am arguing like that is clearly what the Bible says in biblical, rabbinic, Islamic law. And I would even argue that's probably clearly what majority of Vedic law says.
Well, accountability is tribal.
No, it's
And
really the
tribal
competence.
affiliation is partly theological, but it's partly ethnic.
No, it's an assumption of mental status. I'm saying that women are not accountable because they're not competent to be responsible for their own decisions. The husband or the father is responsible for the woman's decision because the woman is not responsible for her own decisions. And like, I'll straight up, because like, you're a Vedic woman. Like, I know what the Vedas say, and I know like what the Bible says. I'm not advocating for this. I just want people to honestly say that's what these texts say, and that's how people acted in history.
Well,
So
the notion of a patriarch on the family level is grossly over exaggerated in modern times versus the importance of the theological patriarch in ancient times. So I feel like it's a fallacy to put responsibility on either the husband or the wife. Does that make, the property argument is sort of diluted?
the argument, if you're going to argue that women are not accountable, The
I'm not arguing that. I'm saying that nobody's accountable, and you have to pick what you're going to be accountable to if you want to improve. And all we're doing is becoming less accountable because of the national debt constantly going up. That's a fucking measure, right? That's a proportional amount to how much we're not accountable.
I mean, you want to hear what the Rambam says? You want to hear what Maimonides says or not? And like, I could see like it's
well,
not.
I always want to hear what Maimonides has got to say.
Well, I mean, because Maimonides lays it out very clearly and saying like women are basically of the category of children, and it's mental competence that women lack, and women are not capable of making rational decisions in that way, that they cannot be granted legal status. They cannot, and even for their own protection. So it's not only like, okay, there's certain privileges or stations in society that women can't hold, but women are literally not liable for what they do. That's saying if a woman messes up, they are not mentally competent to have known that they should have known better. As where a man, like, yes, if you're a man, even unless you're an orphan, you could say like, yes, you should have known better, and you will suffer the consequences of your action. So from the Maimonidean, largely completely biblical perspective, that women are not accountable because they're literally not mentally capable of understanding the consequence of their action, of knowing better, and they need a caretaker to be a custodian over them. And in the sense, like from the Maimonidean point of view, if your woman gets in trouble, the man bears full punishment for what the women did, and the man is supposed to go home and beat his wife so that she doesn't act like that in the future. At least she knows like that. But I mean, the woman just understands. She doesn't understand like her action was bad and she's not allowed to do this. She just understood that whatever happened caused her husband to punish her, and she won't do that in the future the same way that you might raise a child. And not just Maimonides, but like the biblical literature from the Talmud really to like 150 years ago is like explicit that this is like how you're supposed to have a functioning family. And it's just in a legalistic manner, because legally the argument is about the punishment of men for what their women do. And so, just looking, like you go to traditional, it's like, no, we're not looking to punish women. We're looking to have accountable fathers and husbands that will bear the punishment for their women. And
yeah,
I mean, in the Bible, we're warned.
Is a legal concept.
Well, I mean, so you're also required to some extent, create a welfare state for the people. I mean, for orphans, basically. I mean, the rabbis even clearly say it in this language. Like in the modern day, everybody's basically an orphan. And like, so I mean, that's basically kind of what you're saying. Like nobody's responsible. Everybody's basically an orphan. And
well, yeah, I mean, you think of the yogi adopting people into his lineage, and then everybody just being like tautologically a child of the yogi, because the yogi's the only one who's actually mature and sane.
Well, the only one to be responsible, the only buddy who is actually accountable. I mean, you're using the word accountable. So, like, if you're in a good society where the
accountability is a legal notion, whereas what the yogi does transcends the legal thing, but the level on which it makes sense to talk about it is legal. Because it's all about men paying the consequences legally of what women do, like you just said, right?
Yeah, but that's what you were saying with the deficit. And I think that, like, it's very difficult to frame and to successfully, like, kind of like zoom in and zoom out. So I mean, like what you were maybe going to the deficit and like zooming out and framing it, and say, well, the deficit obviously it's not working. Society is, like.
Well, no, it was the deficit in combination with men being net taxpayers and women being net welfare recipients. So that is saying that there's an imbalance towards women, and then the national debt is saying everybody's not accountable, but women are more so unaccountable than men. Yeah, I never actually got the fucking words out because, this super famous guy came along, I guess, and he was whatever. It's fine.
He was just better and quicker than you at speaking. Like, I mean, you were there.
There you go.
You could have blurted in or spoke quickly, or like he was just better and quicker than you at grabbing the mic.
I guess I need more nootropics, don't I?
Well, I mean, okay, I'm saying like, but I'm saying like it wasn't rigged. Like you were there, you could have fought for the mic. You didn't, and I'm not saying you should have, but I'm not, and I don't necessarily think like he wronged you or something. Like he, like
I
that's
think
part.
what I did actually made sense because the level of engagement was just like.
Well, I mean, in fact, like you did to my like. I would say aesthetically, you did the worst possible thing because, like, when you did get in, you started speaking really, really slowly, and it's like, oh man, do not speak slowly. Like, if you're gonna get in, like, get in quick. Like, do not get in and then speak all of a sudden slowly. It didn't even make sense to me why you were doing that.
Because that's the speed of thought, I guess.
But it was just like bad streaming. Like probably nobody like all of a sudden like you're there and then it's like
This is what happens when you're fucking listening to every single thing at 2x speed and you actually listen to someone speaking normally. You're like, this is too slow. Well, sorry if I have to think about things.
No, you were speaking. You were
them.
like the slowest speaker on the panel besides Ryan. He was also speaking really slow. Maybe just like a white person thing.
Okay, well, maybe if I wanted to pad what I was saying with 50 tons of fucking garbage, then I could talk more. But I just wanted to keep it to the most important points.
Yeah, but the point. I mean, it's even the point. Like, you needed a man to help you. Ryan wasn't a real man. He wasn't capable of helping you, so you basically didn't talk. Like in Lav, who is kind of like, I mean, God forbid, the Jewish sex worker, like she had enough balls to just grab the mic.
I don't see it like that, but okay.
And in the sense, like you needed someone like James to like, to hand you the mic and like everybody quiet now so she could talk. And then like, unfortunately, the few times you had that opportunity, I mean, you didn't necessarily like faceplant or something, but you could have done a lot. Like it didn't really hit with me. Like you probably could have done more with that.
Well, here's what I'm thinking. I want people to want to talk to me. And if I am constantly technically dominating them, they're not going to want to talk to me. And that's like the other side of the female preferential treatment. Yes, there's preferential treatment in one way, but then there's also less of a tolerance because the trait, I guess, is somehow more annoying when it's coming for a woman, for a lot of men. No judgment. I don't judge.
Well, I'm saying that you need in a alpha male environment, like you have to fight for that. No one's going to give it to you. And that's the privilege of being a woman, is that everyone's be like silent so you could talk. Like generally, like you have to earn that respect or silence or people to want to hear what you say. But sometimes that will be handed to a woman. It's occasionally be handed to a beta male with expertise that like the group needs to listen. And even though the beta could never get the group's attention, the alpha gets the group's attention and says it's really important to listen to this beta. And in the essence, that's the same thing that's done for women. But unfortunately, for male betas, it's usually done because they have expertise, as opposed to for women, it's usually done just because they're women. And then it causes negative consequences to the group, even to the women involved in the group. But there's a tendency to do it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And if you're functioning better, like you would rather be an expert like that, like you don't want to build up your own school and like demand the respect and silence. You would rather someone build that up for you and have the audience ready and just be introduced in front of the audience. And
you'd think that, but the reality is that the more followers you have, the more crazies, and it's an annoying, stressful thing to have to worry about people coming into your life that you just don't want to.
Well, I'm saying like event organization in terms like I was a rabbinic assistant for decades, and like event organization, basically what you're doing is organizing people so that eventually like the rabbi, the guru is going to talk and everybody's going to listen. And it's not easy, like I'm saying, like in almost all of those situations, I would say literally all of those situations, with every guru, every rabbi, they always came in after everything was done. Like they only came in like after everybody was silent or ready to talk, or like everything was set up, like very, and you have to become guru to get to that circumstance where people do all this work for you on your behalf. But there's a lot of work that goes into like having an audience ready for someone to listen to, and it'd be very difficult for a woman um, to be able to create that. And it's saying really because there's a lot of conflict. There's a lot of silence, shh, quiet. Listen to the alpha. Like they're important, and it's like now
Yeah,
everybody should
making a woman an alpha, right? Like, didn't you say in the Jewish fables there's that it's a sign that you've done something wrong if you have to have a woman teacher? Something
punishment.
like
Yeah, I'm
that?
saying it's that it's punishment for ignorance to be taught by a woman, and it also
Ah,
goes
yes,
back.
there we go. So which scripture is that?
It's in the Talmud. I mean, just a
See, there
mention
you
statement
go. Like,
that
I just
I
want
said
to have
was
some stuff from. I want to have a nuanced take on the Talmud, and that helps me because it's
um
like I like it in a way. It's really harsh, but there's something spicy about it.
in the conception today, like not just daughters but sons. Like if you're, let's say you're a modern Western Jewish male that didn't have a day school, you didn't go to a Jewish school or have like an in-depth Jewish education, because that was like the time in America. But now the current time, you have children, you're going to send your kid to Jewish day school, and then like already in like fifth grade, like your kid is learning things. He knows way more than you. He already speaks Hebrew and like knows all the prayers and all this stuff. And like, and it's just embarrassing that like your 10-year-old kid knows more about Judaism than you do. But like to some extent, that's a good form of punishment. Like it's at least you have it, like the stuff or the punishment of your kid knowing what you should have known but don't know is a good form of embarrassment. And so if you're in the situations like I'm a mess up and I should have learned this stuff, but I didn't. And now I'm in a situation where like I'm learning it from a woman that's, it's reformed to like a form of punishment. Like you shouldn't be in that situation. It's nonsensical that you're in the situation. Like how the hell did you get in a situation where like you need to learn this stuff from a woman? But like in modern society, it's flipped. Even in the Jewish world, where just women are more serious, men are irresponsible, so women are by far more responsible. I mean, I literally teach at a school in Detroit that's like 55% women, but like the top school in Detroit, which is a charter school, basically purely based on task performance, is literally like 2/3 women. I mean, this is mostly African American, but like just the women outperforming at task performance, but it's like the women have to appreciate they're really not doing that well objectively. It's just because the men are falling short on their obligation. And so if it appears to you that the women are like super performers, it's saying like you are sadly mistaken. And you need to recognize that you have failed at your task, you had failed at your obligation, and you're cursed in this situation right now, that the best you could do is sit and listen to some woman teach you. And then there's a certain reality to it in modern days, but like certainly in the Talmudic times, like you'd have to be in a really bad situation. Like what type of man would you have to be? How uneducated and unaccomplished would you have to be as a man to need a woman to teach you?
Geez, I don't know. I just haven't learned that much, but pretty much everything I learned was from men.
In the terms of like theology, math, and science.
Yeah,
But I'm saying
exactly.
obviously like the one thing you didn't learn and what women should have taught you, which is what they would have only taught you if you went to an all-girls school, is how to be a wife and mother. Like unfortunately that's what you needed women to teach you, and that's what you're missing. Like you were never taught how to be a wife or mother. Maybe like your own mother or a few women gave some tidbits, but you were never formally like in a formal education setting where like today class, like today girls, we're going to talk about how to be a wife and a mother, and like you learn things for years to help you eventually become a wife or mother. Like you never had that. No.
That's right.
And it's almost like you can't probably, I mean, do you at least know girls who went through that, or could you even imagine, like, what do they even teach you there?
I can imagine like what they're teaching, like ironing and cooking and cleaning and how to take care of a man sexually.
Well, no, there's laws. So, I mean, like,
Laws.
well, I mean, there's laws and rules about how to be obedient to your husband in terms of, and even like financial or home economics. So it's not just like, here's how, I mean, okay, obviously you're going to have to learn how to run the home. You're like, I mean, you know, at some point, relations or childbirth, but, you know,
But
to
the
the,
thing is that I always had a drive towards excellence, so I learned that stuff even though I didn't have to. I just
I mean,
like
so
it.
there's two things. Like, if you're part of a society where girls are taught to be women, you don't just learn and do that in school. Like, you're part of large families, and as a young girl, you're already taking care of siblings or children. Like, you're not, you and you know it's expected. Like, you're going to weddings, and you're going to weddings. Like, if you're part of a religious cult, you're going to weddings of people like 17, 18, 19 years old. And like, if you're part of a good, I'll say like a good cult, which could be like Hindu, Muslim, Jewish, Christian, like, but if you're part of a good cult in the sense of like a traditional patriarchy, like all the girls, like if the girl's not married by the time she's 20, there's something wrong with her. But like in that extent, like it's not just like you're being taught like how home economics, like you're already getting involved in childcare, you're already going to weddings regularly, you're already part of this like separate social network of women that largely functions absent of men. And so that's what like you and Western and modern women are missing. Like, they're not part of a network of women that basically focus on taking care of children, um, you know, other home functions, but they function as a unit collectively, as women, almost without men. You know what I'm saying? Because like most of like, okay, I was an Orthodox
Uh,
Jew. Like, I went to all boys schools, and I'm saying that like there was all girls schools. Like, I know like there were all like the girls get together and they do things, but like most modern women, they're not used to like the girls getting together and doing things. They don't even know what they do. Like, what would all the girls get to get, like, if like we were streaming like, okay, all the girls get together, like what would you even do?
if I was getting together with all the girls,
Yeah, what would you even do with them?
um, what do you mean? What would I do with them? Under what like, what's my relationship with these girls?
What I'm saying, that's the point. Like, if you're not used to living in a gender segregated society, but if you're living in a largely gender segregated society, the women manage large functions of society, and like
Okay, yeah, I
and
got it.
like the children, you know, like child, like the home and children, and like the women just get together and they do that stuff, and the men trust them to do it. Like, they're not, you know, necessarily like, you know, bossing them around or something. Like, the women have their function, they get together, they do that. And often, like, I mean, like, God forbid, like, I remember like it was like a breath of fresh air to like these women from India that like just politics didn't interest them. You know, they just don't follow politics. It doesn't interest them. I mean, it's just not their domain. It doesn't matter to them. And I even mentioned, like, you were saying like the old school days, like, you know, I sometimes speak to kids or you know, different groups, like, you know, often African Americans, and you know, just the expression like he's a businessman. And like, to the women, like, it doesn't matter, like, what's your husband, he's a businessman. Like what difference, it doesn't make a difference. Like, I don't know what he does, you know, like maybe, you know what I'm saying? Like
I
where the
don't
women
think so.
like just they don't understand what their husbands do. Like, I mean,
Oh yeah,
even
okay.
like not just like in Hasidic culture, like there's a lot of cultures like that. Like, the women literally just don't understand what their husbands do. They're all businessmen. Like, my husband's a businessman. Like, what kind of businessman? Like, I don't know. He brings home the money.
Yeah, so basically like gender segregation, right?
Yeah, because when the genders are segregated, like the business is just not the domain of the women. They don't know about it.
Right.
Like they literally like know nothing. Like I don't know what my husband does. I don't know who he talks to. I don't know who he meets with. Like I don't even know how much money he makes with. He just gives me my spending allowance, and I don't know.
Wow. So different, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's so different because you could adapt to it, like because obviously, like especially Jews, because like Jews have a unique situation with Zionism, because um, you have modern, educated Western Jews that grew up in a liberal world, and then they get to Israel, and like Israel has a certain element of that, but it's completely different society, and you have a large element of the orthodoxy and structure, and then like people like myself, I know countless people that have completely upended their life, and then I've also on the opposite end, I've known countless people that have left more traditional backgrounds to become secular, and then as I've got older and done interfaith, and like I know a lot of people from all sorts of traditions and could generalize the process to uh, and like, I've been thinking like the Hare Krishna temple, the difference between the Indians and the Western converts is always gender segregation. Like the Indians, whether they're religious Hindu or not always, but like as a general thing, like naturally do gender segregation. As where even like Western Hindus, unless they've been like accustomed to it, they are usually just like no, I'm not. Like they don't like the gender segregation is just unnatural to them, and they don't want to do it.
The chat's wondering what's going on. I think it's just because David is passionate about this topic, and I mean, we don't talk about it much. Obviously,
I
I'm
can say
not
you could address
invested.
the chat directly. I'll just mute, and if I even smoke a joint or somebody, if you want to just address the chat directly, or like the chat is pinned in the link. Anyone who wants to come on, I will add them. And like no, like if Jennifer just wants to address the chat, go for it.
I was just saying, is it's trying to David explain basically that you're not you're not off your rocker. You're just interested in the topic and don't get a chance to discuss the topic because like men versus women, that always devolves really fast.
I mean, intellectually, I like being provocative. Like like behavior, like in person, politically, I'm conservative, but intellectually, I like to be provocative. So I'm just throwing things out there, and also like I know a lot of stuff. I read a lot, and just informing people of, um, my own experience, or Jennifer is a global person and knows a lot about it, different things, and just saying like it's not always what you're familiar with, and even other lifestyles that you might think are strange or weird in another setting, you could acclimate yourself to, and they might make a lot of sense to you.
Yeah, I mean, I can see gender segregation, how I can imagine how that could work because it'd be like the same power struggles, but just only within girls.
Well, I mean, it's different because in the sense of segregation of tasks. So you're not only segregation of sexes, but segregation of tasks, and then things that you don't notice that you might, because you're just not acclimated culturally. And then there's certain cultures that's not religious based. Let's just say like gender segregation is actually found in all different forms of cultures and societies. It's actually gender segregation is what's unique largely to the emancipated West. And you have a few, but like gender integration is relatively new. And if you've grown up in gender segregation, um, it would just be natural. Like you would sit with the girls. You wouldn't even. You have to. You don't have to. You could go to all girls school through high school, and then become change your ways. But like if you're accustomed to a kid, it would become natural uh, with a whole bunch of other things, regardless of the religious teachings or the political or the various teaching. I just mentioned like most people in the West or people thinking about like this, are women accountable? Like gender segregation is so far from them, let alone to like, okay, if you were in a society where gender segregation is just enforced, it's the rules without exception. Like, Islamic countries, not only Islamic countries, African countries, or different countries where gender segregation is law, it's enforced.
Yeah.
I mean, for a little tidbit of anthropology, like even societies like where women go around largely, naked or partially dressed, those are almost always gender segregated. I don't, as far as I know, there's no gender integrated society where women go around half dressed. Like all, societies of like women like that, their gender segregation is actually a requirement to it. You can't have like these like naked, different tribes or something without gender segregation.
Yeah, I was thinking like gender segregation is almost like having two sub tribes within the tribe.
Well, I'm saying that the priests, so I mean, gender segregation and sexual selection has to be approved by the elders, by the priests. So that, I mean, it goes together, like in sense that the genders are segregated, and the only time where it's okay for men and women to be together is after a marriage ceremony that is officiated by the priests. So the priests basically become the bearers of marriage, in the sense that you have to obey the priest, because the priest, you could only get married with their approval, and they're a big factor in that. Like in terms like if you're a small place, there's only a handful of girls you could choose from, and you got to kind of like ask your parents or get on the good side of the priest in order to get the better match. And then legally saying to say like, you can't get the girl or boy you want without the priest's signature. It's a prerequisite to the relationship. So if you don't have that structured society where the men and women are separate, and the only time where the men and women could be together is under the auspices or authority of the priest, it creates a completely different societal structure where you don't have gender segregation and you don't have this priestly role. And then it's basically like, well, I'm just going to choose, I'm going to attempt to choose the woman that I want, and I don't even need to really concern her parents or priest in it at all. And like even there's really no venue in modern society where you could get a woman by kind of like being nice to her father or nice to a communal priestly figure, as opposed to like if you were in a more tribal place, the way to attract a woman would be by being nice to her father or the tribal leader. And even the woman herself would be
Yep.
more likely, like the woman herself would be studying your interaction with her father. That would be her main factor, is like, is my father going to approve of this man? And then she's going to be focusing on the marriage, because basically saying like, I'm part of the society. I would by no means do anything that wasn't sanctioned by the society. And of the woman's most valuable possession is her virginity, and there will be a ceremony when her virginity is given away, and her father and the priest will sign a document.
Yep. So in that case, the way I see it, like the men, the head of the family is accountable to the government, and the underlings of the head of the family are responsible to the head of the family, kind of thing.
Well, I mean, the priest is, if you have a masonry type perspective, you're going to have like a third degree mason, and in order to be a head of a household, you have to become a third degree mason. But like the theoretical priest, they have to be worried about the accountability of everything in the tribal unit. And if you have some sort of structure like society, there's going to be different heads of households that not only their main responsibility is their household, meaning their women and their children, but also societal responsibilities. But the priest type figure, they're going to be the end all decision maker for societal decisions, and the power of that figure, like the figurehead, the true authority that the priest has is actually over sexual relations, over marriage, because according to most tribal communities, like it requires the approval or the signature, or really the ceremonial ritual necessitates, like you can't get married unless your local priest agrees to officiate the ceremony, and if they don't, like it's obviously something wrong. So that like it's really marriage. If you're in a traditional society like that, even like Orthodox Judaism, it's actually the power of marriage that is the priest's largest power, in terms of like the priest theoretically being in charge of decisions and the well-being of the whole society. Often like there's other figures, and it actually be head of households that run businesses that are likely, but the priest would still be probably the head of the council of the elders that would make any decision on any important issue. And the reason why that priest has that respected authority is like because marriage has been outsourced to him. And that also has to be a tribal acceptance, where basically everybody accepts that like this is the person who officiates our marriages. And that's why I said often that's a hereditary title. So like most lasting like called like cults that still perform, and that they're often hereditary, where the person who performs marriages is the son of the person who performed marriages the previous generation, going back, something like that. Or occasionally you could work your way into becoming the person who performs marriages, although that's often a tough role to get, like, but as opposed to America, anyone could really perform weddings. And to some extent, anybody and everybody does perform weddings, and it's a sign of status that you don't have to be a priestly figure, but you could just be some sort of alpha figure to preside at the wedding of your friend. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those practices in the West, in the sense where you have lay officials that sometimes officiate weddings, but like in a tribal society, it's regulated by religious law. Who you could marry, who could have relationships, and how the ceremony is performed. But you could really only have that patriarchy, like as far as I know, like I don't think you could have successful patriarchy. So if you're saying like we're in the West, we don't have that type structure, we don't have a tribal structure, you can't trust your father can't find someone good for you anyways, there are no real tribal elders that are going to be able to successfully like say like this boy's for you, and there's not really a mechanism like the divorce to keep people together, because like you need like a small tribal unit to shame people away from divorce, to make it look like the damage it's going to cause my family unit is less bad, is more important than the damage that I'm going to be from like being in an unhappy marriage, or like taking kids that I don't really want to. You would say, because like like in the modern structure, it doesn't really affect your family. You could just move to another city, or your parents in. You don't really have that structure anymore in the West. So from that, you say it's really impossible to return to patriarchy. And at this point, like you can't really make women property anymore. Like you can't return, because like you'd have to return women to their fathers. And at this point, like I don't even know how you'd create like a status to say, basically, because like we mentioned the birth rates also, because generally more educated and wealthy people have fewer children. And so you have less educated, more poor people who tend to have the majority of the children. And then so when you try to regulate how children are raised, it's also problematic. You really can't, it's very difficult to do. I didn't find any of their remedies. Maybe that was you're saying like we just kind of like talk about it. We need some mass enlightenment, societal changes to I don't even know.
We have to acknowledge, I think the first step is acknowledging that the government fundamentally is redistributing resources. And when you redistribute resources, it has what you might call a eugenic effect, if you count dysgenics as a form of eugenics. Like it just basically changes the distribution of successful reproduction. That's something that we have to like have a conversation about and look at actively engineering after we acknowledge that if we've got this government thing operating, whether we want to or not, there is a change in distributions, and the way to like just have to be working towards the distribution that is conducive to the future that we want. So we're not thinking about what a better future looks like. So obviously we're not going to get there. It'll be a miracle to get to something that you haven't thought about. And that was what I was trying to get to during my opener, but didn't really have time to finish, is like an abundance mentality versus a scarcity mentality. Making that transition would sort of be the way. And I think it'll come with going back to Yogi as basically the owner of everybody. Because, well, like you said, the fathers aren't going to want to go back to re-owning their daughters. So short of everybody becoming a ward of the state, that's the alternative. Some spiritual leader or a bunch of fucking buildings with a bunch of bureaucrats in them.
Just this question in the chat, like I've seen like Orthodox Hasidic Jews could have success even with hundreds of thousands of people. You like Hindus or Muslims, like, yeah, I mean, like historically, anthropologically, I don't know, like, like a Dunbar or something, like number it, but I would say in the West, you have to be part of a cult. And there's many cults that are successful in the sense that you could do like certain breeding practices or traditional, and you like even Christian, like the Moonies, the Reverend Moon, Unification Church. Like in essence, like any society could structure itself in a way that has traditional breeding practices and arranged marriages and priests that dominate ceremonies. And the fact is they exist all over the place. But like, yeah, they do have to be small enough in number. And if you're part of like one of these international cults, the shaming technique is basically like, that's why it has to be a cult, because for not following their ritual or priestly authority, you get kicked out. And in the sense, you can't have like, certain, like in other countries, you could have the priest actually have legal authority. But like in the West, the priests never have legal authority. They could only have voluntary authority of the people that are choosing to live under that. And so it basically has to be a cult that if you don't follow the rules, you're kicked out. Otherwise, you start making exceptions, and then nobody follows the rules. And in the type thing, it's like a catch-22, where no girl is going to want to get an arranged marriage if she knows she could like you have to keep the women in the girls like uneducated, because like women that are educated are not going to want to do an arranged marriage. Like it's very difficult. You occasionally have like, I mean, I mean even rabbis like interviewed where you do have occasionally like rabbis that that's daughters are educated and like will still marry the man their father wanted them to. But even that's like very difficult and it's dying out. And generally, like, no, like once your daughter gets educated, she's not going to want to choose. She's going to want to choose, and she knows that it's possible. Like once a woman knows she could choose her own mate, there's almost no chance she's not going to want to choose her own mate. I mean, just logical from like a female brain. So I mean, from the biblical perspective, like you have to prevent like women. I'm not even sure how to say that. Like I mean, I'm not even saying that like it's prescribing, but this is my perspective. Like once a woman, no woman, like once the women could choose their own mating partner, they're never going to go back to allowing men, even their fathers or trusted elders, to choose their mating partners for them. So in this situation, I don't think there is a viable path to patriarchy from like the biblical perspective. God forbid. This is where you have like a cataclysmic boom and bust cycle. So like, basically like, God forbid, there's going to be war, famine, horrible things are going to happen. The masses of population are going to die off. And that is how we're going to return to like a patriarchal, in that, so that's meant to scare you, say from like the biblical prophecy. is say like like society gets off and people start doing devious sexual practices, and then the coming destruction, and masses of society have to be killed by famine and war, and God forbid, and then society will rebuild in the traditional structured way. And I think even a lot of different Vedic or different things kind of have this cycle where you don't need strong.
No, there's nothing like that. It's things are restored and then they degrade and then they get restored again and then they degrade again, and that's the cycle.
One of the cycles, people are left to their own devices. They choose the wrong thing, and their own decisions cause destruction. And after the destruction that's caused by their own poor decisions, it could be restructured in a way where, but I mean, basically, like, when society's right, only a few people make bad decisions. Like, so to say, like in the, if things started on the right foot, you'd have basically all responsible fathers that took care of their wives and their kids. But they get a few daughters and wives that slip through the crack, and then like at some point society's degraded, and like it's literally like 90% of the women, wives and daughters have fallen through the cracks, and almost no men are responsible. And that's when the bust cycle happens. There has to be some sort of bloodletting or reset. And that spiritual cycle is laid out not just like in Kabbalah, but in multiple things. Like, recognize that there are these natural cycles of this, where it's basically human nature that causes the cycle to it's basically what your debate partner was saying, that man cannot be trusted to control his urges, and basically man sins, and sin is, although he seemed to have rejected that sin itself doesn't work. So I didn't, but I mean, from the perspective, like, sin itself doesn't work, but man can't control the sin, and then eventually society becomes majority sinful, and then you need to have some sort of reset.
Oh yeah, gee darn. I guess Hinduism, I feel, is like strong because you don't need perfect conformity, because they have a prestige that is determined by your level of conformity. So you can
really want to argue Hinduism? And what are you
you can
talking
get more freedom at
Krishna
the
tells
cost
him that
of
Krishna
loss
tells
of
Arjuna to
prestige.
kill all the enemies at the Battle of Kurukshetra. Like, what are you talking about?
Because we don't give a shit about dying in battle, because
No,
we
because
accept
but I'm saying because there
reincarnation.
was a
Because we
reset.
accept reincarnation, we don't care about that. We don't spend all our time, oh my God, I'm scared I'm going to
But he
die.
did. I'm saying, read
Ooh.
the whole Bhagavatam is a series of escalations of bad actions. Like, had the Pandavas or either party not kept on escalating, but just repented and stopped their bad course of action, it wouldn't have had to come to the Battle of Kurukshetra. But it gets added on top of each other, one after the other, of not making the correct decision and escalating till eventually the Battle of Kurukshetra, where there's no choice but to kill everybody.
I don't really think that is the meaning of that story.
You don't think it's a valid reading of it? It's kind of a biblical reading of it.
Yeah, that's definitely my impression. I mean, I take it more as like it was destined to happen from the beginning. And the only reason Krishna took birth was to orchestrate the war. So you're saying, oh, they could have changed it any time. I don't think so. Because Krishna only takes birth when there's a degradation of Dharma.
Yeah, but you're giving a free will argument. Like, there are multiple points in the story where if the Pandavas, or am I saying it wrong, hadn't behaved the way they had, the war would not have escalated to eventually Kurukshetra. It was only because they behaved in the improper manner that they did that it escalated eventually to get to Kurukshetra. I mean, it started with gambling, and then the mistreating of women, and obviously like Karna trying to kill it. But I mean, there's a whole series of events that didn't have to take place that led to the eventual showdown at Kurukshetra. And presumably, like, had they not made those bad decisions, it wouldn't have escalated. So maybe like the free will, Krishna knew that obviously they were going to make these bad decisions, and it was eventually going to lead to the Battle of Kurukshetra. But like, you know, looking at it in retrospective, no one would have thought that it was going to escalate to, I mean, because the Battle of Kurukshetra was in essence a dispute among brothers and cousins that escalated.
No.
Yes,
The idea is
a
that
dispute
one
among brothers and
clearly
cousins.
had better adherence to Dharma, and when the one with less adherence to Dharma gains power over the one with more adherence to Dharma, you have to declare war on them to maintain Dharma as a supreme ruling force in the universe. And Krishna would not have taken birth if there wasn't a destiny to have a conflict over the nature of, even if your cousins are really actually pretty much believe the exact same thing as you do, you have to go to war with them if they're slipping up, even
You're
remotely.
saying,
So it's not like, oh, he just made a little mistake, he would have been fine, he got on the wrong side of the bed. No, there was obviously a lot of, you just have to compare it with other things. It's like they had good karma, but they were extremely destructive. And then there's the one where God takes birth and goes to war with. Anyway, I have to look it up to get the exact names, but whatever. Go ahead.
no, I mean, because that's not the way the story is told. Like the whole, I mean, you have the Bhagavad Gita, but I'm saying the whole lead up, like the Bhagavatam, or the story leading up to it, clearly delineates a series of bad decisions that, had they not been made, it wouldn't have escalated. Like it's told in a progression, and like the first part of the story is like related to the birthright and the king. It's a few brothers sitting around gambling. And like, you know, like from the way the story's told, like, no, if they hadn't sat around and gambled, like the whole thing wouldn't have even started. And then, like, you know, from there it escalates until it eventually becomes a civil war where millions of people are killed, and that's even the right thing to do. But I mean, like, clearly in the story there was a point in history where there wasn't like these rival factions that were in dispute with each other. And the rival factions, like, it's clearly delineated all the important parts in the progression of these factions that weren't even rivals in the first place becoming rivals, to the rivalry reaching the point of one of the bloodiest civil wars in history. They don't use the word like sin, and, you know, so I'm laying out in biblical terms of like a, but I mean, you still have this cycle, and I mean, you laid out the cause of the cycle is free will. Like, okay, obviously Krishna is somehow beyond free will. However, the cause of the Kurukshetra war was still the poor decisions of either both parties or one of the parties.
It didn't have anything to do with a land dispute.
The land dispute was unnecessary. It was caused by bad activities.
It's not about it being unnecessary. Okay,
the land dispute was caused
by
the
concept of free will in this stuff. The concepts are all presupposed to be metaphors for moral purposes. So it's always about the morality of Krishna and why every decision he ever made was perfect.
That's your reading on it. I'm saying,
no,
I'm reading
that is the reading. There's no plethora of interpretations. Yeah, you can say you can put a biblical interpretation on it, but that's not the interpretation. And someone in the chat's asking the difference between logos and dharma. Ontologically, they're not even, like, logos is more of a substance, and dharma is not a substance. There's no concept of substances in Hindu metaphysics.
Yeah, so
you'd have to see, the thing is, to answer this question is you'd have to decide whether you're pure Vedic or you have some level of like female male notion of God.
So E. Michael Jones,
there's just no way to like.
No Hindu would say this. This, like, I don't know if I've seen Nam Nam here in the past, but like, this is E. Michael Jones' argument that in the ancient world, the Indians had logos in their dharma. But like, yeah, it's not a Hindu argument, but some Christians argue that like the logos, in terms of like you know, John before the word was the logos, or and specifically it's E. Michael Jones that has argued this multiple times. He actually even spoke to Vince about this, I think. But E. Michael Jones claims that logos and dharma were that dharma was a form of primordial logos before Jesus and the Greeks.
Like,
I'm
it's
not
just
sure.
such a so ridiculous on the face of it, because it's like our view of things is how well we uphold our own laws. Logos is connected to the Christian God.
No, and
So
in that
we have to
logos,
presuppose that this God is somehow all-knowing in the Hindu sense to even get off the ground.
no, that's not.
With the comparison.
No, I mean, logos is not. In that sense, then logos is not like related to the Christian God.
Yes, it is. In the beginning, there was the Word, and the Word was with God. That's translated from a Greek, and one of those words.
I know. I'm talking
logos.
like when E. Michael Jones says that dharma and logos are the same thing. Like E. Michael Jones is referring to logos to some extent, like this natural order, law of the world that doesn't. It's kind of like a Noahidism, but he calls it logos, and it just means like a natural understanding of the order of God in the world pre-Jesus. And that he's saying that, like, so he's in his own way, he's kind of saying like, yes, in the ancient times there was godly truth to Hinduism. So when E. Michael Jones, he's actually making a concession, and he's saying like, yes, there was some sort of God divine wisdom behind the Vedas. And so when he says the Dharma is logos, he's saying like, yes, in essence, Dharma has many of the same principles of logos.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any way to compare them, because we don't consider words conventional semantics to be authoritative, which means that if you call yourself a Buddhist, a Christian, anything, that isn't actually that important. What matters is your level of morality, which within our worldview of morality, we can establish other people's morality, because it doesn't even have to do with adherence to our metaphysics. It has to do with adherence to our principles. So Ahimsa.
Well, I'll agree on Ahimsa. I don't agree on the authoritative interpretation.
Well, the idea is that for traditional Hindus, Ahimsa is authoritative over everything. And it's not just any Ahimsa, it's a yogic authority's interpretation of Ahimsa.
No, I mean, I have my slideshow on Ahimsa. I would disagree. I would say only according to Jains is Ahimsa the prime principle. According to different sects of Hinduism, Ahimsa is almost always in the top 5 of principles, but often it's in the 3 to 5. It's not the 1 or 2. So it's like Jainism, as far as I know, is the only one where Ahimsa is the primal principle. Most forms of Hinduism and Buddhism, Ahimsa is in the top 5, but tends to be in the 3 to 5 range.
Okay, so what comes before it then? And what are these magical systems that preference something else?
Well, I'm saying Dharma, for example, like karma, Dharma.
That's the idea, is that Ahimsa is
yoga,
Dharma.
bhakti. I mean, according to like ISKCON, the Hare Krishna thing, like bhakti is primal, not Ahimsa. Like Ahimsa is still one of the primal things. It's in the top 5, but it's considered secondary to bhakti. So I just meant it like that, like that. And so if you're like a true bhakti yogist, you're gonna say like, well, Ahimsa is actually contained in, like, I don't follow Ahimsa. I follow bhakti.
The correct argument is that bhakti is the best Ahimsa.
Within it everything of Ahimsa that's necessary.
Yeah, exactly. The argument is that bhakti
it's only the
is
Jains that look at
Ahimsa,
as
and that
Ahimsa
it
as that primal principle.
That's
So
bullshit, though.
if you're Jain, then it's Ahimsa is the primal first principle where every other principle is derived from.
Yeah, but it's the same for the Bhaktas. The Bhaktas just believe that bhakti is the way to Ahimsa.
I mean, if you're playing definitional games, I'm saying
I'm saying that historically and that disciplinarily, the argument always goes back to Ahimsa. And then there's differing interpretations of what actually is Ahimsa.
Okay, well, that's. I mean, if Jen's your authority, but I'm gotta say I disagree.
Well,
but
of course,
it
you
doesn't
want to disagree because you don't want to have to be accountable to the standard of Ahimsa because it hits the
I have a
hardest
whole
needs.
presentation, like I even did it on a weekend review of Ahimsa. I even collected together, um, to the best of my ability, the scripture, not only from um, going from the Rig Veda and the Jains to the Bhagavad Gita. Like I mean, don't remember my whole presentation on Ahimsa, and I just said it's just a fact that only the Jains have Ahimsa as the number one principle. I collected the verses from the various scripture that includes Ahimsa as one of the primal principles. But like what you're saying, like no, um, I don't think that mainstream Hindus think that Ahimsa is the primal principles that other principles derive from. I think they think Ahimsa is one of the top 5 principles. And I know as a fact, for example, within ISKCON, like Bhakti, I even had my presentation that they say Ahimsa is derivative of Bhakti, not the other way around. I mean, we don't need to argue that. I mean, I can pull up the slideshow right now. And it has the verses, like I have that already. I even have my article on the Ahimsa principle. Like I did heavy research on this. But I'm not here to debate that. Although you could see how it might relate, like Ahimsa and accountability are related. And I mean, I just say to Nam, I'm high right now. Like I'm in Michigan, and I just saw like, I mean, we haven't done week in review for so long. I used to collect like information. I was like, wow, that's pretty interesting. Like I share it on week in review. Like, well, though at this point, the only thing I think I could get an audience for is my Israel report. But I saw that Michigan, where I'm living right now, is actually the 3rd biggest cannabis market in the whole world. And ironically, there's only 2 bigger cannabis markets. I think the biggest cannabis market in the whole world is California. The second biggest cannabis market in the whole world is Canada as a whole, because I guess Canada, however it's regulated, it's considered one market for all of Canada. And the 3rd biggest marijuana market in the whole world is Michigan, where I'm living right now. So I gotta say, like, I am high right now, definitely. I don't know about Jennifer.
Oh yeah, it's great.
I mean, she's Canadian. Like Ryan, like like they blaze in there. That's what we do. I mean, that maybe your debate partner wasn't so friendly, but okay. Well, it's good streaming. I mean, if you want to ramble, like no one's joined. Some interesting people in the chat. I mean, if you want to talk about anything, any of their projects, or there's more of the debate, like I'm not
Well,
streaming.
it's pretty late. Like I wanted to, like I mentioned to you, discuss that Dutton evolution debate because
I mean,
I
I
mean,
would,
the
if
whole
you want
thing
to do like
overall
a,
wasn't. I agree with you. Overall, it wasn't great, but like there were a few interesting things I wanted to
I
mention.
would go back to a month in review if you wanted.
That
Um,
could work.
and it's saying like collecting things and to go over content or speak to people. If I saying like, okay, like this is post modern day debate and we hardly broke 15 people tops, and it's saying like you don't stream much, like it's tough to get viewership. Like one of the biggest things of streaming is doing it regularly. But if you want to try back week in review, like even if it doesn't grow, just talking, um, because like yeah, all these things interest me. Especially like the reason I left streaming was because I wanted to avoid conflict and I wanted to. But I like streaming, especially talking about the things I care about and find interesting, as long as I could find other people to talk about it with. And I like debate too. Like and like obviously, like if modern day debate like invited me, like I would almost unquestionably accept no matter what topic. But like I'm not really happy with the direction they're taking it, although I understand for economic reasons why they're doing it.
Yeah, well, to me, I'm a little more optimistic because I think that people being interested in a debate is a good thing, but that sort of debate is to me not as interesting as it could be. So I'm not going to really probably change my view that what we do is a niche activity because it's intellectual, but it has a huge impact. It really helps a lot, even though it seems like there's not a lot
I would be up to
of
trying
people
to
here.
build up debate again, like like even I mean, unfortunately, like Claire, like the only person I could think like ready to like, but like whoever, like in our streaming circles, like, like I've accepted anybody who wants to talk to me. I always say yes. Like, God forbid I'm a loser. If you want to talk to me, I'll say yes. Like, I'll be your friend. If you don't have any friends, I'll be your friend. But I would, if you want to start like debates or like small time debates, like evolution, I've talked about in my Discord. People, everyone like wants to debate. That everyone that never debated before like thinks they could do it, but it's actually a lot of tough work. But if anyone wants to do debates, like I'm always happy to host debates, moderate, and I like research. I'm one of the few people that actually enjoys the research and making PowerPoints. Like that's actually my favorite part of it. Like the debate itself, like you know, like the games, the showtime. Like Duvid is the rare person that actually enjoys the research and making the PowerPoint part.
Awesome. Yeah. So, okay, let's talk about that, and we'll hopefully see everyone back real soon. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, do so.
Yeah, I would do Dutton. Like if people promote it, I would pay that too. Like I would even. I mean, at this point, because I already challenged him, I might even pay like $500. But I mean, any more than that, like, would just be too like out of my price range. But like, and I don't really want to pay him $500. But like, I want to debate. Like, I would even pay people.
Looking forward to it. All right, so I guess we'll wrap it up for now, and look forward to the next one.
Okay, yeah, God bless. Great time. Like, Hypogmus says 2-on-2. Yeah, I thought like 2-on-2, me and Jennifer versus like Dutton and JF Evolution. But like, I like research. I could debate like any topic. Like, if this was the topic, like Jennifer, like she prepared, she worked hard. But like at the same time, I know I'm boring, and you get a smaller audience. The more technical you are, but I would like the technical stuff. Like that's what I like. I don't mind that it's the smaller audience. So appreciate Jennifer. Anyone tuned in, like follow, reach out. Like I said, we're small enough content creators. So, Jennifer or me, social media, if you reach out, like tweet or DM, you're likely to get responded to. And, we like debate or, kind of intellectuals. So, if there's interest, we'll stream more.
Looking forward to it. Till next time.
Okay. Appreciate Jennifer. She left, so I'll say goodbye again. And thanks for her reaching out and requesting I streamed. I'm glad I did it. I would like to stream more. We'll see what happens. Like I got some chess stuff in the works that I can't really talk about right now, but I might be doing some chess stuff. There's also the Crazy House World Championship on Lee Chess. I might stream some of that. I like debate like if Jennifer wants to start doing week in review or like month in review, I would do a month in review. I have a lot of my research that like I've still been doing and could stream. It like my Discord, and not really. I mean, really, like I said, I don't have an active community. Like there's people in my Discord that's probably the most active, or a handful of people that DM. But stay tuned, stay posted. Appreciate anybody tuning in. Appreciate Jennifer for tuning in. As said, like if anyone tuned in because they saw Modern Day Debate and Jennifer, you could reach out directly to her on her various social media, and you'll probably get a response.